In 1917, African Americans across the country planned a silent protest. They wanted to bring attention to the hundreds of black people who had been lynched, beaten, and murdered by white mobs. On July 28th, they refused to speak a word all day. It wasn't a general strike, but an estimated 10,000 African Americans stayed off the job until sundown. That's how big this silent protest was. No one spoke to their employers, their families, or their friends. Everyone from barbers to factory workers to school teachers participated in this massive silent protest. Slavery had ended less than 50 years before, and African Americans were still fighting for their freedom. They were fighting for their right to be treated equally under the law, for their right to vote, for their right to own property, and most importantly, for their right to live. But this wasn't the only way African Americans fought back against those who would keep them enslaved. Some ran away, others led entire communities to freedom. Still others took their fight to court. And all of them left behind powerful stories about what it took to win their freedom. From the earliest days of slavery in the United States, black people resisted their enslavers in big and small ways. What we know about these acts of resistance comes from historians who have studied primary sources like slave narratives and resistance narratives. These first-hand accounts tell the stories of everyday people who refused to accept the brutal system that denied them basic human rights. After slavery ended, formerly enslaved people created networks to help newly freed folks navigate the challenges of building a life in freedom. They turned to churches, community leaders, and organizations like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, for support. Even so, African Americans still faced tremendous obstacles. They were denied access to quality education, housing, and employment opportunities, and they were routinely subjected to police brutality and intimidation tactics designed to keep them from exercising their rights. But instead of backing down, African Americans continued to organize and fight back. They formed mutual aid societies to help each other out and lobbied government officials to address their concerns. They also turned to the courts to fight for their rights. One way African Americans fought for their freedom was through something called a freedom suit. A freedom suit is when someone who is enslaved files a petition in court to end their enslavement. Enslaved people sued for their freedom using various legal strategies. Some argued that because they were literate, they couldn't possibly be enslaved because no one could read while in bondage. Others argued that because they lived in a northern state or a free territory, slavery could not legally keep them. Many petitions were based on the belief that since their enslavers had brought them into a free territory, they automatically won their freedom. All of these freedom suits were based on the belief that every person, regardless of race, should be free. But even after the passage of the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery, there was still no guarantee that African Americans would be treated equally under the law. In fact, many southern states passed laws known as black codes, which were designed to restrict the rights and movement of African Americans and keep them working in low-wage jobs. Despite these challenges, African Americans continued to fight for their freedom and equality. They organized protests, boycotts, and strikes to demand better working conditions and equal pay. They also continued to turn to the courts to challenge discriminatory laws and customs. Throughout American history, there have been countless examples of ordinary people standing up for what they believe in and fighting for a better world. From the early days of slavery to the civil rights movement and beyond, African Americans have shown incredible courage and determination in the face of adversity. Their struggles have not always been visible, but their impact has been undeniable. So the next time you hear the phrase, "freedom is not free," remember the countless individuals who fought and continue to fight for the freedom and equality. Enslaved people resisted in various ways. Some ran away, others led entire communities to freedom. Still, others took their fight to court, and all of them left behind powerful stories about what it took to win their freedom. Enslaved people were resilient and resourceful. They created networks of support to help them survive the horrors of slavery, and they never gave up hope for a better future. Black abolitionists like Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth emphasized the need for racial equality alongside the fight to end slavery. Meanwhile, white abolitionists were often focused solely on ending slavery itself. This difference in perspective sometimes caused tension between black and white abolitionists. However, they ultimately came together to fight for a common goal. Prominent figures like Harriet Tubman and Frederick played crucial roles in the abolitionist movement. Tubman, a conductor on the Underground Railroad, helped hundreds of slaves escape to freedom in the North. Douglass, a former slave, became a renowned orator and writer who tirelessly campaigned against slavery. Freedom suits were a significant part of the fight to end slavery. Enslaved people used legal petitions known as freedom suits to challenge their enslavement in U.S. courts. These petitions often cited descent from free ancestors or residency in free territories. Some states had legal frameworks in place to address the issue of slavery, which allowed enslaved individuals to sue for their freedom. By utilizing existing legal avenues, enslaved people were able to argue for their rights and seek emancipation within the existing power structure.